Hello, I'm the Lore Master. Welcome to part 2 of the feasting. Last time we left our Grey Fox brothers. They were going to meet the mayor. And I also would like to say, like and subscribe. Share this with a friend, your neighbor's cat, or anyone who will listen. Remember, I am extremely desperate, so please help your Lore Master out. Now with that, let's begin part 2. Allow me to introduce myself. I am John Selma, the mayor of the wonderful city of Black Hope, and we welcome you to our part of the woods. We are the largest and finest city in the entire Maple Ridge mountain chain, part of the Great Appalachian chain, and may I say it is a very fine day to meet such interesting gentlemen like you. We don't get very many Native Americans in these parts. Let me be the first to shake your hand as he outstretched his arm. I didn't get a good feeling from this man, even though he was the mayor of the town. But as I didn't want to be rude, I shook his hand anyway. I'm Bill Greywolf, and this is my brother, James Newton. Glad to meet you both. I hear you're from Huntsville, said Selma. How do you know we're from Huntsville? I asked. Trust me, Selma said. Word travels fast, especially when you live in these mountains. We know everything that happens from the Gulf of Mexico to the Ohio River. And I'd be pretty dismal mayor if I didn't know who our visitors are or why they are here. I make it my business to know something about anyone who comes to our fine city. Not to interrupt, said James, but we are here to find out about Wendigos and to hunt them down. We have heard there have been sightings and murders. We are here to help this area put an end to the killings. Oh yes, those poor unfortunate souls. Most of them have been army men, our Confederate brothers fighting for the cause. No one leaves the fort or enters the fort, unless you're me, that is, answered Selma. Then, we would like to talk to whoever's in charge of the fort, I said. His name is Edward Greenwood. He has been in charge of protecting our city from those Union vagabonds who try to get in and cause trouble, answered Selma. How do you know this isn't a Union spy responsible for the murders? I asked. Tell me, Mr. Greywolf, how many killings have involved someone's cheek missing and their organs missing? I am not aware of how people do things in the North, but I would venture to say that death there isn't that gruesome. Most of the victims have had bites taken out of them, and some, from the looks of them, whatever did, had a nice time eating them, explained Selma. Would you like to come inside of Town Hall so we can discuss this further, or are you ready to go and see what's going on at the fort? I believe it is in our best interest to go to the fort and see the bodies for ourselves, to make sure they were mutilated by Wendigos, or not just a brutal assassination attempt, I answered. As you wish, said Selma. I will be there if you need any assistance getting anywhere in the city or the county, anywhere else in the county, if you should need it. Thank you kindly, sir. You have been most generous, answered James. With that, we thanked him for his time and got into carriage and headed to the fort. How bad these Wendigos are now, how bad the situation is. As our carriage rumbled along the streets, James said, "Beautiful day. That man must be blind. I have never seen a sky as gray as this. I bet they don't get sunshine here." "It's probably because of the factories and the mines, because it's a major mining and manufacturing city," I replied. "Well, if you ask me, there should be a law about how many factories are in one place should have. We have been here for 20 minutes and I feel like I've smoked a load of cigars. The sooner we get to the bottom of this and kill the Wendigos, the sooner we get out of this hell pit and back to the beautiful and sunny Huntsville," James continued. As the minutes ticked by, I assumed that our carriage man was intentionally hitting every pothole in the city because of how much a carriage walked back and forth. It was like these people had never heard of asphalt or concrete to fix them. After an uncomfortable ride, we arrived at the fort and it was massive. I have never seen such a fort in all my life. The fort appeared to be at the very edge of town and was at the bottom of a steep mountain that pointed upward. Its stone watchtowers towered over the city, like the walls of some fortress or a wall in a fairy tale. The fortress was made of polished marble and looked like it was the most beautiful part of this godforsaken city. Its towering walls seemed to be as tall as the mountain itself, and we could vaguely see the outline of humans walking on top of the structure. Most of them were the size of toy soldiers, and at the top, cannons looked like small toys. To be honest, this place looked grander than anything we had ever seen, and I felt sorry for the architect who had built this fine building in a place that seemed so desolate. Once we were inside the courtyard, I saw hundreds of Confederate boys, all lined up and accounted for, as if they were waiting for us to appear. Most of them saluted to us. Some looked stoic as statues, while others had concerned looks on their faces. As to what we were doing here, at the front of all regiments was a man standing, very fine and tall, and had a chiseled look. He looked like a statue of a Greek god in some art museum, and had piercing blue eyes with a hint of green. This was obviously the man in charge. "Welcome," I said. "I am Lucas Hill, and welcome to Fort Morgan, the largest fort in the entire Confederacy. This is the beating heart of all regiments coming from the Gulf Shores and northward. We have men here from Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi. This is the biggest stronghold in the entire region. But you are not here to admire the architecture. You are here to see what our problem is. Down the morgue, follow me, and step lively." We did as we told and followed the colonel through the vast structure, down the halls into the morgue, at the very bottom of the fortress. The basement. "Are you from Alabama, or what state are you from?" asked the colonel. "I am from Florida myself," I said, smiling. "Home of the best regiment of the entire Confederacy, and the best rum you will get on the North American continent." "I'm James, and I'm from—" James was about to say when the colonel spoke up. "Here we are, gentlemen, the morgue. I know your line of work is a bloody and grisly affair, but these men you are about to see will be the worst. you have ever seen. You may want to prepare yourself. It is not a pretty sight. So, with that, we stilled ourselves and walked into the morgue, trying to prepare ourselves for what we were about to see. On a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 15. Even though we had seen Wendigo maulings before, the brutality of these deaths was something we had never seen before. James, even though he had been in the profession longer than I had, his face showed that he was about to throw up, which really said something. Even though I was quite sick myself, I was better at hiding it than James, and I put on a calm demeanor not to show anyone what I was truly feeling. As I walked up to the corpse and studied them closely, I noticed that there was something odd about them. On the victim's hand and bone, his hand seemed to be broken, one finger at a time, which is something you would not see in a Wendigo attack, because they are ravenous and will just dive in, eating anything and all they can. All they can. It was as though they were torturing this man before they feasted on him. I also noticed the wounds were bad. Were bad. Only one of them seemed to be fatal. Most of them were created to inflict as much pain as possible. To be honest, the way this man died made me sick. The skin was peeled off like that, and you could clearly see his bone, and there were obvious teeth marks on the bone itself, like something had been chewing on them. But I knew this was no dog or wolf. The worst part was his eyes. His eyes were open and his eyes showed fear and terror. To me, to be honest, that was the worst part. Most people getting killed by Wendigos die quickly, because the Wendigo wants to eat the person quickly. This Wendigo, however, took its time and ate him slowly, probably enjoying the screams the most. Finally, I had regained my composure and walked over to James, where he was standing looking at the wounds. And this one is bad. This one's a bad one, isn't it? James asked, looking at it. He must be mighty evil to do something this bad. Yeah, but look at the wounds here. They're not fatal, but they are like near nerve clusters. These wounds were made to inflict as much pain as possible. The wicked monster wanted to enjoy it. He not only wanted to kill people and feed, but wanted to get some sick enjoyment from it. And you see it, he removed his eyelids, probably so they would have to watch what he was doing. But here, see the bite around his collarbone? The teeth marks aren't that deep or sharp, meaning that he was a younger Wendigo or had a younger one with him, which means we might be dealing with two Wendigos. One of them, the leader, is obviously older and more savage of the two, while the other is probably younger and learning from the older one. We need to focus our energy on hunting these two down. I got up and looked at the colonel and said, "Well, where were these bodies found? Out in the woods, in the bad part of town, where all the undesirables live. Trust me, you think Black Hope is bad? Here, there is nothing compared to the people that live in the mountains. Trust me, What you saw when you came here, it is the civilized part of town. But out there in the mountains is a no man's land. You would have a better chance of surviving on the front lines than living out there in the woods, replied the colonel. Where were these men going to begin with, I asked. Most of them aren't from the cities, but live around here, and a lot came from Bass District. Most of these men were just poor folks, looking for a meal or just a place to rest. These people came from nothing and wanted to make something of themselves, be a part of something bigger, win. Then where they came from. To be honest, these men were shipping out to Virginia tomorrow. They had just gone out to say goodbye to their families. It really breaks my heart. They were just kids who hadn't lived their lives yet. Most of the attacks have been on young men like this, in the age of 20 to 40. We have put entire base on lockdown, but there are still men here, are scared for their families who live out there. Just because it seems they are killing soldiers doesn't mean they won't try to kill ordinary folk as well. We are worried that some of our men will disregard our orders and go into the part of town, or worse, the people in that part of town will go crazy and start attacking people in paranoia. The citizens are starting to ask questions, and I am running out of excuses. We have started talking about moving out soldiers, if worse comes to worse. The Bass District, we need to check that out. Have there been any murders in the area? I asked. Fortunately, no, replied the colonel. But some people are actually trying to say it's Jack the Ripper or some person like that. Tread carefully, gentlemen. Bass District is a powder keg, and one wrong move will set it on fire. So, for your sake, be careful. So with that, we left the fort and headed out for our new lead, Bass District. It took a couple of hours, but when we finally got there, if we thought Black Hope was bad, the most putrid place in the world, we were sorely mistaken. The dilapidated and crumbling conditions of Bass District was far worse than anything we had yet to see. To be honest, the streets of Black Hope looked like London compared to this. There was mud and grime everywhere. It looked as if no one had ever heard of a sour before. This place stunk of coal, refuse, and other undesirable qualities that made me want to gag. It made me wonder if the Wendigo could even stand these kinds of conditions. And how could any person even live in such a filth-covered place? As we walked down the street, we saw bordered buildings that one time might have been Southern mansions, but now stood just like ghosts of what might have once been. It as if the world had sadly given up on this entire place, and what was once used to be beautiful and less beautiful, filled with lush gardens and flowers, was now just thickets of weeds, briars, and dead ivy. By the look on Jane's face, he thought it looked like the gates of hell. We decided to go to the first soldier's house, and oddly, people here didn't seem to care that we were not the color of everyone else around here. They seemed more pressing with problems to contend with, and actually, this was a good sign. to be fair, as I was grateful for it. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a pocket watch with the name Howard McBride on it. Our next destination was to find the McBride residence and tell them the unfortunate news that their son was dead and the unfortunate fate that had befallen him. This was the hardest part of the job. I could fight wendigos every day till I died, but seeing a mother or father break down was something that no one could ever get used to. And that was the feasting part 2. I hope you liked it and enjoyed it. So remember, like and subscribe, and I'm not gonna spend too much time since it was a rather long chapter. God bless. Goodbye.